Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And today we're continuing a conversation with Pastor Kevin. We started yesterday, so if you haven't got that part of the episode yet, you should check back into that. But today, we're going to spend the time figuring out what in the world Kevin's going to do when he's here. All kidding aside, there's a lot of great things that are happening now at the church, and he's going to be involved in those. So welcome back in, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yep, glad you're here.
Well, one thing that we kind of glossed over yesterday is we talked about your past and your education and your ministry, but, you know, there was some family along the way. So let's get a little bit into your family, if you would. Kind of introduce us to your family.
Yeah. My wife is Sue Ann. This coming March, we've married 33 years. And we met at Mount Vernon, but not in the traditional way. Mm-hmm. I had graduated, I'd walked, but I still needed a 2-hour class, a speech class of all things, for a preacher. And so I stayed on campus and was working with the campus, and she came in and was working on campus, and so we met. Mm-hmm. So I met Sue Ann and married her in 9 months.
If you know, you know.
So we went from being friends to being engaged.
Uh-huh.
So when I was youth pastor, I would tell the kids, I never held her hand, let alone kissed her till we were engaged.
Yeah.
So we didn't.
And it stuck.
It did.
Yeah.
So, I think we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to that whole, God's got some good ideas.
Yeah. But, we both had graduated, and we kind of knew where we were going, what we wanted. And then 5 years after we were married, we were in Florida.
Well, she went to Mount Vernon.
She went to Mount Vernon. She went there and decided it wasn't for her, so she didn't graduate from there.
Okay.
She was an administrative assistant. Back then, it was Bank One, downtown Dayton. And then, so when we got married over the years, she's served in administrative kind of roles, different places. When we moved here, she interviewed at several different places, but settled on Ohio State, the Wexner Medical Center. She is the administrative support for the doctors in anesthesiology. And so upwards of 30 doctors that she helps, primarily a handful of those, but gets pretty extensive.
Yeah. Wow.
So she's a rock star. They all love her, and it's fun to see her in that element. I've been to a few events where all the doctors, they treat her like she's their boss. So it's kind of funny to see that.
She knows more about them probably than anybody else, so they do need to treat her nice.
Now, we shared a picture of your family the past couple Sundays. We'll be looking for these people. and
back in the day, we put a red rose on their lapels. Remember those days?
That's true. We did do that.
But
As a trigger.
Tell us about our kids also.
Yeah, so Bethany is our oldest. She was born when we were there in Florida. And Bethany is a kindergarten teacher in Columbus City Schools. She is in a school that is, what do they call it? For a lot of the students, English is not their first language. Uh-huh. So a lot of her students are Spanish speakers. She's fluent in Spanish, so she teaches. Okay. A lot of times the kids come in, they don't know any English. And she loves it. This is her 6th year, I think, doing that. So she's loving that. She's thriving in that. Uh-huh. Then our second, and if this helps, the kids' names are alphabetical.
Oh, that is a great idea.
Yeah. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. But
Did you name the last one with a Z so that you couldn't go any
Zach?
further?
Yeah. I actually, when the last one was born, I did tell the congregation that I named him Finito.
Nice.
So there's Bethany, then Caleb. Bethany graduated from Mount Vernon. Caleb graduated from Mount Vernon, graphic arts design.
You've sunk a lot of money into that school, haven't you?
We have, yeah.
I share your pain.
Yeah. And then Lydia, our third, she did 2 years there and decided that wasn't what she wanted to do. And so she has her own business. She's a nail tech and is in with a couple of other friends and just thriving and loving. She's very artistic, very artsy. Nice. And our youngest is Micah, and he's a senior at Mount Vernon, and will be graduating this spring.
Yeah, and he's already got plans, right?
Yeah, he already has plans. Micah, a couple years ago, speaking of kids, we talked about this yesterday, speaking of kids that in the middle of the night or late at night want to talk, he called me. He has traveled with the music and ministry team the summers for 4 years now. And 2 years ago, they were up at a camp, and he and the other guys were talking, and he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, I think maybe God's calling me to ministry. I said, okay. I let him talk a little bit, and one of the best things my dad did for me, when I told my dad that I knew God had called me, my dad's response was, well, it's about time you stop straddling the fence. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, I've known for a while. And I said, well, why didn't you ever tell me? He said, because it needed to be God's call, not your dad's call. Yeah. So when Micah called me, I just kind of, that's really neat. That's interesting. And I just let it go. And he didn't bring it back up that often. So last spring, he comes home and he sits down and he goes, all right, I'm done running. I know God's called me, and this is what I need to do. So when he went back this year, he could have graduated early, but he went back, and he's been taking classes and going to be interviewing for a district license, and he already has a position. He's going to be the youth pastor at South Point on our district with Pastor Ryan Byers, and so they're all really excited about that.
Great. Nice. Nice. Yeah. And South Point down in the southern part of the state.
Yes.
Is it like right along the river?
Right along the river,
Okay,
yeah. So they're right at that point where West Virginia, Kentucky, and
like
Ohio.
Around Ironton or...
Yeah, just a little south of Ironton. Ohio, I have discovered, they're very ingenious with naming towns. South Point is the most southern point, just like Centerburg is the center of Ohio. So.
Yeah, but Upper Sandusky is down below regular Sandusky.
It is.
So it kind of messes that up.
That is true. You got me there. That is true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll transition to...
Oh, no. Go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to transition to you, actually.
Oh, my. Okay.
Because... talk a little bit about the reason you're like, Kevin's the guy.
Yeah. So it's Pastor Tim. He has done a lot of things over the last 23 years. He started out doing one thing, and it's evolved in 23 years into what he does now. And it's interesting because this church is a very, very interesting church. I mean, there's a lot of facets to it. There's the school and the early learning center and the ministry of the church, and then there's a basketball league, and there's just a lot of pieces and parts to shepherd. It's not like a typical church that is maybe there is no such thing as a typical church, but this is definitely not a typical church. And so Tim does a lot of stuff, and a lot of that is that we have. It's almost like kind of having multiple congregations. You have, almost 600 kids in a basketball league, and you have all those people showing up. That's sort of a congregation. You have 325 kids going to school across the parking lot here. And there's a bunch of families over there, and they're all connected to the church. And then you have, 500-600 people who come to church here on the weekends. They're not all the same. There's a little crossover, but not a lot. And so it's trying to minister to all of them and manage that. And then on top of that, the pastoral care needs, the taking care of, being able to really love and minister to people. There's just no way a person could do that. And so Tim and I have been a really great team, I think. At least I think Tim's been great. He's done a lot. He's helped me a lot. I don't know if I've helped him any, but he's just been a huge blessing. And so when he is like, when Tim leaves, we're like, what are we going to do? And so it was kind of like, Tim's role kind of evolved over the years to what it was. And then when he leaves, the typical knee-jerk reaction is, well, let's just hire somebody to do what he did. And if you're listening to this and you've been a part of Shepherd for a while, it's kind of like not David Morrison. He's from Grove City. David Middendorf. How do you hire somebody to take David Middendorf's place? Well, you don't. You just figure out what the needs are. You keep moving. Kind of same with Tim. So we know we have some needs that we're going to have some pastoral care needs, and so Kevin's going to help with that. That's also something that all the staff are going to share. It's not going to be all on him to do those kind of things. Although almost every funeral that happens here, Tim does. But people know him and love him. And a lot of people have said, you're going to come back and do my funeral, aren't you? And I'm like, I don't know if he is or not. So I don't want to say you need to figure this out now if you want him to do it or whatever. But
they'll never know.
That's very fair.
True. That's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't say that either. Joe said that, just so you know. But then there's a whole nother, like a business side to this. Like, you gotta run the church. I mean, there's bills to pay, and we were just in a budget meeting on Monday for a couple of hours, trying to figure all that out. And then there's also a construction project going on right now. While Mike will be a big part of that, that's something that ultimately it's the church's responsibility.
Right.
I think one of the legacies that Tim might have left for us is that we have a roof that doesn't leak now. We spent a lot of time on that, so hopefully that won't be an
Pastor
issue.
Tim.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of pieces, and then Kevin is a great preacher, so we want to involve him in the preaching rotation, helping oversee staff. And a lot of the gifts that Kevin has are things that are not my gifts. And so I think because of that, we complement each other and make a really good team. And so I'm grateful for that, because some of the things he's good at and likes to do are things I'm not good at. And therefore you don't typically like to do things you're not good at.
Right.
And so there's that. So I anticipate, there'll be some pastoral care. There'll be a lot of executive pastor stuff, running the business pieces of things, helping us in the administrative piece of that, relationships with the different kind of congregations that we have, being here as a pastor on Sundays, and everything. And so, it's not going to be that different for you. It's just a different place and a lot of things. But I'm super excited about it. And when we were talking about it, we've been praying about. I mean, Tim had basically been threatening this for a while, So I'm like,
the day is coming.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, when we were about a year out, I'm like, we better get pretty serious about this, because I don't want to wait to the last minute. So while people may think that this happened, this has been in the works we've been praying and thinking about this for a long time. But Tim came in one day and he said, what about Kevin Angel? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And so I
owe Tim $50.
I was like,
wait 30 days.
Yeah, I'll wait 30 days. Yeah,
He might owe you 50.
He might owe me. Yeah, that's true.
But they were like, Kevin's pastoring a church. I don't know if this is what he wants to do or whatever. But we had conversations, and it just felt like the Lord was opening the door and making it possible for this to happen. And it's been great. And so one of the things that is really different for me is that you're here now, and Tim is still here for a month.
Yeah.
And so, Tim has 23 years of, you got to get this working, you got to stand on your left leg and hit it with your right hand or whatever. He knows all the tricks and everything. So, you guys being able to work together for about a month is going to be really, really helpful, because he started making some transition notes, and he shared the document with me. And I looked over it once, and I'm like, "Oh my!"
The document that's too large to email.
It's big. As you know, Tim is pretty detailed. He's like, I got every password, everything you ever need to know. I think honestly, he's doing all that because he doesn't ever want us to call him and say, "Hey, Tim, what are you doing? We need your help with this."
He's getting a new phone number.
Yeah.
New identity.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the other day, the first thing that ever happened that Tim didn't know the answer to happened here since I've been here. So, as you know, we had a parishioner drive into the church building and open up the nursery and to helped us to grow that.
Yeah.
And we were we started to repair it. And so the wall was still up, and it was just in, it was in like a foot, so it was not safe. But on the inside, we built a wall so that when we tear out the exterior wall, people couldn't just walk into the church. So we built the wall, walled it all off, and then went out the door and came back the next day, and we're ready to get working. And the worker comes to me and says, "Hey, you got a key to get in this room?" Well, there was a door there, but I'd never even walked in or out. We never go in and out those doors ever, only if there's a fire drill or something. And so I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got a key." So I used every key that I had, and it didn't work. And I called Steve, and I'm like, "You got a key to this?" He's like, "Oh yeah." He comes over, used every key he ever had. I said, "Mike, you got a key?" Or Mike, "Oh yeah." He used every key. Not a single key worked. So I called Tim, and I'm like, "Hey, you got a key to this door?" And he's like, "Nope." Like, I've never unlocked that door in my life. I'm like, I've never even. So we had no key to the door, but we had built a wall on the inside without a door. So there was this space where you could you couldn't get to it. Like you is either break the door or the window or down, or go inside and break down the wall to get inside. And so
crawl through the hole. I mean, your car drove through it.
Well, I thought about it. We would have needed a kindergartner, and I'm like, can we just get a kindergartner to go through there? And they're like, it's probably not safe,
Yeah.
So they had to tear part of the wall down to get back in there. But I'm really disappointed that Tim didn't have a key to that. Like, that's the first thing the whole time I've been here. I think that he didn't have an answer for. So.
All right. Well, since we've gone down that rabbit hole. So we kind of know the answer of why you wanted Kevin to come. So Kevin, tell us, how did the Lord work on you that at this point in your ministry, you're like, this would be the right fit for me?
That's a good question.
You're welcome.
I suppose you want an answer to it. It's interesting. Rob called me one day or texted and said, hey, you want to get lunch? Sure, we'll get lunch. I'd just come off a sabbatical. You were getting ready to go on a sabbatical. Yeah. And we talked about a lot of stuff, but we didn't talk about anything. I thought, well, that was an interesting lunch. And then about a month later, he said, hey, can you have lunch today? Yeah, sure, I can meet you for lunch today. And he said, well, Tim's retiring. And I thought, oh, I think I know where this conversation is going. And he asked me, would you even be interested in the conversation? I mean, if you're not, there's no sense. And I remember just kind of sitting back thinking, I probably should at least listen. And I said, I think I'm open to a conversation. And so we chatted a little bit in broad strokes. There was anything seriously we discussed, and we both agreed, we'll go pray about it.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go on sabbatical, and I wanted to know if, be praying about it.
Yeah, while I'm on sabbatical, I need to be praying. I need to be praying whether I'm praying about you or Lord, help me find somebody.
Yeah.
And I just remember walking away and praying, Lord, is this an open door? Is this an open door I need to walk through? Is this something that I should be open to? It's because it is different. Mm-hmm. It's very similar, but it is different.
Yeah.
And I remembered years ago when I went to Pastor Jefferson on the North Central Health District, David Wilson was the district superintendent. And a little side note here, David Wilson's father was my dad's pastor when my dad received his first local minister's license.
Oh, wow.
And he had me interview there, and we received a call and overwhelming support to come. And he said to me, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I said, I do. He said, good. He said, the best place for you to be is just barely keeping your head above water, because it'll make you dependent on the Holy Spirit. And I remembered that conversation, and I thought, I don't know. I mean, I think I know, but I don't know what an executive pastor does. Mm-hmm. Not in the context of like what we'd be talking about. And my role would be different, and can you go into a situation like that? And I remembered that conversation, like, okay, so I'm probably okay. Feel like I'm in deep waters here.
I feel like that every day.
So you're in a good spot. And I'm just gonna say this, and you can all take it for however you want to take it. I've always been a firm believer that you can't really be a good leader if you don't know how to follow. So obviously, I'm not the lead pastor. Pastor Rob's the lead pastor. I've been a lead pastor for a long time. But I also feel like I'm okay not being the lead pastor. I can serve in ways to help Pastor Rob accomplish the things that he feels led to, and I can have influence and help the church get to where we want to go and buy into vision and help cast vision. And I'm comfortable in that kind of a role, in that kind of a setting. And I don't know that everybody could do that. Mm-hmm. Sounds like I'm bragging on myself. I'm just trying to say I do feel comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And so the more I thought about it and prayed about it, I'm like, this is a good opportunity to stretch myself and to be in kind of in a different role, but also be in a role where I can help accomplish some things. And because I have been in a lead role a long time, there's a lot of things I'll be doing that I have done and have an idea of what could help. And so I'm excited about the challenge. I'm excited about being a part of this church. And who knows what's ahead of us, and maybe it's good that I don't fully know.
Most of the time, for me, it is.
Yeah.
So for me, it just became an opportunity. I'm a firm believer in praying, Lord, open or close the door. Mm-hmm. And, Rob and I have known each other, and we get along, we have a good relationship. That doesn't automatically mean this would be a good idea to work together. And I just prayed, Lord, continue to, if this is the right thing, continue to help both of us have a sense. Because if I said, I want to do this, and he says, I don't know, or vice versa. And every time we would talk, usually we wouldn't talk a whole lot. Sometimes it'd be a text, how you feeling, how are things going? Good, let's continue to pray about it. And when it all finally came together, I just kind of felt this clear leading that this was the next step in a journey that I needed to take. And then once I felt that, then there was the reality of, okay, now I got to think about, I got to step away from where I am, and I want to finish well, and I want to help prepare the way, and what that means. And so it's been an interesting journey. So this transition for me is different than any other ministry transition that I've ever experienced. One, I'm not moving, which thank the Lord for that. I've never.
You'd be moving by yourself, wouldn't you?
Right.
Because your wife said she's not moving.
Yeah. Sue Ann made it very clear to me a few years ago. The only way I'm leaving this house is in a body bag. So I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
But I've also never taken on a ministry role where the person that I was following, that I would be working with, as
Still
a
there.
resource.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things about it, that are, all right, this is going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And I would just add one thing I think that, those of you who are listening today could be praying for us about is, it's like you said, it's a very new role for you. You were a lead pastor. Now you're coming on as a staff person. I don't know that I've had a person who was a lead pastor come on as a staff person ever.
Yeah.
And so I want to honor your leadership that you have. And I think you have a lot to offer here. And I think together, with the team that we have, it's going to be a good fit, and God's going to help us to grow the church and move forward. Yeah. So, but it's different, and I want to be aware of that too. So there's a lot of just new stuff.
And for me as well, one of the things that made it appealing or made it easier or makes me feel more comfortable and at ease, I know most all the staff.
Yeah.
So I know Tim. Tim and I have worked together at Board of Ministry over the years. And then staff that have come through interviewing for district license or have been at the ministry assessment weekend. And so I've already known some of them. So for me, it's fun to now be able to be a part of their life as a team. Yeah. And there's a good chemistry. You have a great team, and so I'm excited about being part of a good team.
I'll say that I'm more excited about our team than I've ever been, in having you be a part of that as well. And I was excited to tell him. I was doing my best to keep it a surprise.
For a while, you were just an unnamed request.
Yeah, just a silhouette.
I was like, we know who it's going to be, but I'm not telling you guys because you hadn't told everybody yet.
Right.
So when the word got out and I told everybody, they're like, "Are you kidding me? That's awesome!" They were all super excited. So it was great.
Well, in December, I came to surprise the staff.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the conference room, and staff members began to come in and looking at me and what?
Why is Kevin here?
Yeah, they didn't ask.
Who's in trouble?
Even
Checking
asked
on my
why is he here.
credentials.
But I think some of them thought, he's the district secretary. Maybe he's here for something for the district. And then I won't mention Natalie by name, but Natalie was sitting kind of not one person between us. And when Rob mentioned my name, she looked over and she said, "When did you get here?" I said, "I was sitting here and you looked right at me when you walked into the room." So, but I would never mention Natalie by name.
We could do a whole episode on some of those fun things from Natalie. And maybe we will someday.
Yeah, I'm sure she would.
Yeah, she's like,
that.
"Wait, what are you doing here? How did you get in here?"
All right, well, we're going to leave it there for today. We hope that you've been encouraged and challenged, even by Kevin's own testimony, that the Lord was calling him to something else, and maybe the Lord's calling you to something else as well.
Yeah.
We challenge you to check out everything that's going on at the church at shepnaz.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Do all those shares, comments, and likes. It's an easy way for you to be able to witness to your friends and family. For Pastor Kevin and Rob, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.